second half.
Here comes Gooden gonna score the 2 and 1.
Full drive inside. Stop. Hang on a pivot. Turnaround jump shot is good.
Jordan Battle with a nice spin move. Kicks it down low. Fardaws, Big Maple with the finish.
What's up, WAC Hoops Nation? Another episode of Straight Out WAC Podcast. As you can see, wearing some new apparel. You can find it at our WAC shop that is in the description. Links in the description below. It's UTA week. We're finishing it up here next couple of days. Got season previews coming out for both the UT Arlington men's basketball and women's basketball teams that will be out most likely later today. Just depends on when I get up to Bear Lake, Utah. If you've never been to Utah, Bear Lake is a place to go. It's on your way to Yellowstone. So with that being said, I got a special guest here, UTA play-by-play. I want to say broadcaster, if that's the right word, Josh Showers.
Yeah, we can roll with that, something like that. Yeah, absolutely. A whole host of jobs, I suppose.
There you go. So, Josh, how long have you been the voice of the Mavs? I didn't do a lot of research into the background and stuff, so I figured I'd let you tell us the story.
Yeah, that's okay. We'll be Facebook friends soon, I'm sure. This is I'm going into my my 9th season actually, and I started doing it just out of college. And as far as actually calling UTA games, it'll be since 2010. And I listened to your interview with GY, Greg Young, head coach UTA, and his first year was my freshman year at UTA. And so me and him have just kind of had very similar paths following the basketball program. But long story short, graduated UTA in 13, and then did an internship with UTA for a year. And then the very next year, hey, would you like to become the voice of the Mavs? And I said, absolutely. And here we are, fast forward 9 years later. It's crazy how fast time flies. But yeah, I love every minute of it. I'm a UTA lifer for sure, and looking forward to starting another season.
That's awesome. I love that. You graduated from there, you interned with them, and they gave you your shot to stay there. I have a couple other guys around the WAC that I've talked to, Carlos Zimmerman at Sam Houston, who's the radio voice now that Rob Hipp left. He's a graduate of Sam Houston. He's still there. And, yeah, I think that's awesome when schools, are loyal to their students and guys that worked for them, coming up into their career. So I think that's an awesome story.
Yeah, I love the homegrown story as well. And coming from the Sun Belt, there's a few of those stories as well. So I'm looking forward to getting to know the WAC guys, because now it's entering a whole new fraternity, I guess. I get kicked out of my last one. We don't know how to play football, I guess. But so I'm looking forward to meeting some of those guys and kind of creating that bond I created with those guys from the Sun Belt.
There's some good ones here. There's some good ones, and you'll meet them. And there's some great broadcasters, radio guys as well in this league, so I'm excited for you. I want to ask you, Greg Young mentioned about the whole Scott Cross situation and how that whole staff got fired, and he was and he was part of that. You were there, obviously. You saw that. Now Greg Young's back. He was asked to come back. What he told me the other day is that he didn't want to come back. Like, he didn't want to, go down that road again, but he was, I don't want to say push, but he was encouraged by like a Chris Beard at Texas and others to stay there and stay on the staff when he was asked. I mean, what was that like when you saw that all take place, especially with the success that the Mavericks had up to that point?
It was a wild time. And when I listened to the interview, with y'all, that strung up all sorts of memories. I was working in the office at the time, so it was basically ground zero when all that happened, and it was confusing. You didn't know really what to think of it. That was I'll never forget that day. Just getting so many texts and phone calls from random people. But I will say this: whenever the rumors started swirling that hey, GY might be back as an associate again. That I guess warmed my heart. I love GY, and I'm sure you got a sense of how nice of a guy he is the other day. Whenever you talk to him, I was doing a baseball game back in it was like I think in April, and calling the game, and the stands are right in front of us, and GY comes walking up the stands, and he goes, "Hi everybody, I'm back," and I just like a tear nearly fell out of my eye as I was calling the game. So I was super glad of that. You ask any player that plays for or has played for Greg Young, I mean, he's the guy, and he's one of those that he wants success on the court, but man, you see how many players come back and say hello, and now he's got a thing in the locker room signing the old floor, signing the old Texas Hall floor. Guys like him. He wants these guys to become men growing up on the court, and that's what you see.
Yeah, I was talking with him the other day. It sounded like he knows that there's going to be basically a rebuild, complete rebuild from the bottom up. He knows what he wants. He knows what he wants to do to accomplish it. He talked about the guys that he's brought in that he's hoping can. It's about bringing in the right guys. I know, some teams are all about winning like right now. And I know he wants to win, but like he understands that it was kind of like an SMU situation with that firing that everything got I don't know what to say. It was like I
know what you're trying to say. I know exactly.
I don't know the word that's trying to come out of my mouth right now.
Yeah, it's and I know the word culture is thrown around so much, but that's what he is trying to instill and with the entire city of Arlington. And that's what UTA needs is like he said, recruit from the inside out. Well, let's get the fan base from the inside out as well. Let's start with Arlington. Let's start with Dallas. Let's start with Fort Worth. We'll go from there. And that's just what he's trying to do. And I think that's what he excels at. I know he spent a lot of time this spring and summer recruiting, but I think lately, heck, even today, I saw him this morning. He's going to a coach's clinic over at TCU, and he's teaching an hour and a half long class. So he's a people's guy. People love to hear him. People love to see him. And that's exactly, like I said earlier, what we're seeing with him, what you'll see with him for that. That's just who he is.
Yeah. And if you listen to also, kind of flipping a little bit, not a lot, but with Sharika Wright, the women's coach, she talked about that building from within. The thing that she did with the Dallas Wings this past summer with the playoff, buying the tickets. She talked about building that, combination of fans where they want to come watch the Wings, but they also want to stay and watch Lady Mavs. I feel like both coaches have an idea of what they're trying to build with each program. Obviously, the Lady Mavs have had more success the last 2 years. Like, can you talk a little bit about that and both coaches understanding what they're trying to accomplish?
Well, they're friends and they get along and they see they have that same vision in sight. With Sharika, there may not be a crazier story of how Sharika Wright's head coaching career started with COVID and having to cancel games and travel and tournaments, masks, yada yada yada. But as she mentioned in her interview with you, that now in her third year, she is starting to, I can concentrate on this aspect of coaching instead of this aspect of coaching. She's done a phenomenal job so far. I love chatting with her. If you tweeted her, she's probably going to respond pretty quick. Both those coaches have the exact same mindset, which is it's such a good thing to see from a UTA fan perspective like myself and UTA supporter.
When you look at the move to the WAC, you've been at UTA since they were in the Sun Belt the entire time you've been there. What do you see going on with this move? The basketball, some years the Sun Belt's better. Some years, I shouldn't say some years. Before the Texas schools moved to the WAC last year, the Sun Belt was better basketball-wise than the WAC was. We're not going to beat around the bush there. Last year, those Texas schools get added. This year, Southern Utah, UTA come in and maybe make it even a better league than it has been, especially, no offense to Alvin Brooks at Lamar or the UIW, but they weren't going to help the basketball side of things. Southern Utah, UTA are better basketball-wise than both those schools. But there's a lot of depth in this league. We were just talking about before I got on here about my preseason poll. I am so torn about my rankings because it's so deep. How do you see the Mavericks fitting in here in this league?
Yeah, well, I'll take you back to I was a student when we were in the Southland playing at Texas Hall, and I was doing a radio show for our student radio station whenever we moved to the WAC. I remember doing segments on that. Oh, hey, how are we going to fit in here? Obviously, totally different now. Well, then we go to the Sun Belt. That was a total crapshoot. Who is this? Georgia State, Georgia Southern. Well, they came in later. South Alabama, Troy, all of them say, okay, we're really stepping out of our Texas lane here. I think it's a good thing. And if you look at the RPI numbers from last year, the WAC was a better basketball conference. I didn't think the Sun Belt was that good of a basketball conference last year, really at all. They've got some great players. There's a lot of high major transfers that go into these schools in the Sun Belt, but I personally didn't think the Sun Belt was that good in basketball. Overall, I'm not going to talk about baseball now. Baseball, it's a little different story. But I think UTA is going to fit in great. There's a lot of similar schools. And for me, I mentioned, being a fan, we get to bring back some Texas rivalries again that we had in the Southland. Abilene Christian, Stephen F. Austin, Sam Houston for 1 year. I wish they were staying more.
Yeah.
Had a couple of good friends down there. But that brings back those rivalries that we had back in Texas Hall when I was a student growing up. So I'm excited for that just because there's a lot of regional rivalries. And I love App State. We're not having to fly out to Boone, North Carolina to play the Mountaineers. Great place, though. Highly recommend visiting. So that's what I'm looking forward to the most is getting those Texas schools back in, because I do think we rank up there with your SFAs, with your ACUs. We saw ACU last year, crazy game. I know GY talked about that. And then seeing some new places, some new faces out west, the great beyond, as we're calling it, outside of Texas. So I think UTA is going to fit in just nicely. As far as the depth of rosters go, I think you and I are in the same boat. I have no idea. I have that's my October homework, I guess, is to start looking at these squads and seeing who I'm going to be calling names of here in a month or two. I think it's going to be the Wild Wild West. Welcome to the Wild Wild WAC, I suppose.
That is a great phrase. I may put that on a T-shirt.
Well, I mean, I love the hat. I love the shirts. I'm going to get me a couple of those shirts because I do like them.
And I want to point out, and I don't know if you know the background. Maybe you have since you followed on Twitter, recently, but the Not a Rivalry and the It's a Rivalry shirts, those are specifically for New Mexico State and GCU fans because one thinks it's a rivalry, the other thinks it's not. Mm-hmm. And
it's the
just had to play off that word.
Yeah, it's the old Longhorn Red Raider, whatever you want to call it. I know exactly what you're talking about. When I saw the colors, it's like, oh, wait a minute. Oh, I get it now.
Yeah. It's a good time. It's a good time. I want to ask you, a little bit about the roster. There's a lot of turnover, I guess we could say. I mean, 3-4 starters gone. One transferred to Oral Roberts, the other one transferred to Memphis. 9 new scholarship players. Just a lot of JUCO guys too that Greg Young brought in, and he mentioned that how he loves those guys that have that experience at the JUCO level. Talk maybe about the roster, what you've seen, what maybe you're expecting. Shamar Wilson is the biggest guy on the roster who returns. There's a lot of unknowns for a lot of us fans of this UT Arlington squad because of the new faces.
Yeah, and I'm in the same boat, and you probably just saw me scroll over there and click the roster to refresh myself. Yeah, only a few returners. This is, as GY talked about, he's a JUCO guy. He went out, he got the JUCO guys he wants. This is really going to be GY's first team with the Chris Ogden situation leaving last year. Those were his guys. And yeah, Shamar Wilson, that's what UT Arlington has missed over the last several years. You got to go back to maybe 2017. Johnny Hamilton, and then 2018, Andres Ibargüen being that big, strong brute in the paint. That has been a bit of a problem for UTA over the past several seasons. I think Shamar can fit that role. And as GY put, he probably should have played more last year. He's added on some muscle, and he's another year of maturity, if you will, for Shamar. Really looking forward to that, being 6'9", 215. I love those type of players. But yeah, everybody else, I've only seen him practice once or twice. And actually, it was during a volleyball match. I was getting ready to do the game. We had a couple hours. I walked into practice. I started chatting with one of the coaches. Well, I guess one of the coaches was supposed to be a referee. He missed a call, and GY said, "Sowers, get out of here. Get out of here." Okay, sorry, coach. See you. We joked about that this morning. So I've only seen them practice a few times. I think they're going to be a quick team, which is what they need to be. Don't stall out. You talked about Pedro Castro with GY. One of my all-time favorite players, being a 6-year guy. It really hurt last year that he got hurt in that Oral Roberts game. I think he is going to be your senior leader. And I'll tell you, I'm not trying to drag this on or anything. I think it was 2017, we went down and played Texas State. Kevin Hervey hit a big three to win it at the buzzer. And Pedro was in he wasn't dressed. He was in sweats. And there was still, I think, 1.2 seconds left on the clock. Well, Pedro ran out on the floor and hugged Hervey. Well, that's like, well, that could be a technical, and that not could be good. GY grabbed him and swung him back, get back to the bench and whatnot. It's like, man, what are you doing? And one of the announcers on the ESPN Plus broadcast, and there's a fan out there, announced. But then you fast forward many moons later, Pedro's gone to a couple different schools. What a nice young man, and he's so mature, and he's going to be a leader, and I can't wait to see what he does. And he's going to provide a huge spark for this offense. That's the thing about UTA is the offense has to click. Last couple of years, really haven't had an offense. Defense has been pretty good. Offense has got to click. Got to find some shooters. Yeah,
that's the big thing. Who can score? I think this league's going to be a lot. It's going to rely on the guards. I mean, we have to be honest. And this is a guard-heavy league. Not a lot of teams have significant size. They have really good guards that have size, I guess you could say. And I think that's going to come into play quite a bit for the Mavericks.
And that was the Achilles heel last year in the Sun Belt. Anytime we ran into one of those, like I said earlier, brutes, that seemed to be a problem for the Mavericks. But like I said, another year, new year, we got some new faces. I think we'll be okay.
How much of the women's side do you cover? I mean, or do you broadcast? Do you broadcast their home games, or do you just stay with the men during the basketball season?
Well, unfortunately, just administration and the radio station and all that, I only got to do one women's game last year. I'll do a coach's show, interview Sharika, and that only game last year was the NCAA tournament game. That was an absolute dream come true for me. Never been to the tournament before, and that was a whole load of fun, and I'll never forget that experience. Sadly, I don't get to cover too much of the women. I only get to see them play maybe a few times a year, just because the mirrored scheduling that the Sun Belt had. And pretty much going to be the same this year from what it looks like. So hopefully get to catch them a few times, but definitely watch them on the ESPN Plus and the WAC website when I can.
I'll have to delve into it. I think every school in the WAC has double headers at some point this year.
Yeah, the Sun Belt started doing that last year, and I'm hoping we have a few of those. One is good for the fans, just so they don't have to travel out and have to split their time with whichever team they have to pick and whatnot if they are a traveling team. So yeah, I think there are a couple doubleheaders. Haven't dove too deep into the conference schedule late in the year yet, but yeah, I hope so.
Absolutely, Josh. I want to ask you, what's one of the places you're looking forward to most traveling to with the Mavericks being in the Western Athletic Conference?
Well, my very first year, we got to go to Grand Canyon. And obviously, we all know that story, how great of an atmosphere it is. We won in 2014. We won that game by 2, 63-61. And that was one of their first years in Division I. And what a great atmosphere. And I remember when we beat them, there was a fan, students walked right behind me. Oh, this loss don't matter. UTA's D2. I was like, oh, God, okay, whatever. I'm looking forward to Phoenix. I've never been to Seattle. We've done Gonzaga. We've played Gonzaga twice, been to Spokane, but I've never been to Seattle. That's probably the one I'm looking forward to the most. And then I have haunting memories of New Mexico State, and I guess I've got to go face the demons over there. GY talked about the 2013 WAC championship game. We lost to New Mexico State. 7-6 Simbular got us. I was a senior, and me and 3 other guys, we drove from DFW to Las Vegas to go watch that tournament. And there was a picture in the student paper after that loss of one of our players sulking, and I'm in the background basically just kind of holding back tears at that point because we had gotten so close. So I guess I'm looking forward to Las Cruces and finally seeing the monster itself, New Mexico State.
There you go, New Mexico State fans. Showers.
Oh, good. I just started something. Uh-oh.
I will be sure not to tweet anything. They will have to watch the episode. UTA, Mavs, play-by-play voice, Josh Showers. Thanks for joining Straight Out WAC podcast today.
Kyle, love your work. I love following what y'all do, and can't wait to get one of those hats and a couple T-shirts, and I'm sure we'll chat with you soon and hope to meet you at some point.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Everybody, enjoy the rest of your Friday.
Thanks for listening to the Straight Out WAC podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and other podcasting platforms. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Remember to follow us on Twitter at WAC Hoops Digest and Facebook under WAC Hoops Digest for all your WAC Hoops news and information.